mute everyone, but of course we can unmute down the line. You will also notice that we are recording this session. That's for the many people who wish they could be here, but because of work or family or whatever other reason, they can't join us, but they are looking forward to watching cue ball and watching this session on into the future. A reminder that all of our virtual programming does live on the virtual library. Go to cmc.edu/alumni or cmc.edu/parents. Click on virtual library and virtual events, and you'll be able to see some of the incredible alumni and faculty members who have spoken to our audience. A few things about Zoom. You'll notice at the bottom, there's both a chat and a participants button. If you click on those to the right, little boxes will open. The chat feature, if you would be so kind, put your name, your class year, your city and state, your parent year, whatever that may be. I'm going to do that right now too. It's fun to see where everyone's from, whether you're here in California, in New York. There was one call we had with 4 different continents represented, but it's nice to see everyone. There is also the possibility to ask questions in the near future as we're going through this session. So you can either put questions in the chat and I will capture those and we'll ask them of our panelists later on when we hit the Q&A portion. And then in the participant section, there's a button that says raise hand. If you want to ask your question directly to our panelists, click that button and I will get to you in the appropriate order and you can ask your question directly. Also at the very top right, there's something called speaker view or grid view. It's your preference whether you want to be on grid view where you see a lot of people on the screen right now, or you're on speaker view, in which case you pretty much just see me with a few little boxes of other people up at the top. It's all, of course, your preference. So today I am very excited to welcome 3 of the individuals who are instrumental in creating cue ball. Which I hope all of you have seen, the documentary on Netflix about how basketball in San Quentin can lead to rehabilitation. That is our conversation today, and we have alumnus Pat Lacey, class of 11, alumnus Tejas Gala, class of 09 and Masters 13, and we have the writer, director, and executive producer, Michael Tolajian. So a big thank you to the 3 of you for being here, and I turn it over to the 3 of you. Welcome.
I think you're on mute, Mike. Is Mike still there? Maybe he's not, and I can.
Did we lose him?
I don't know. He looks a little frozen right now.
Frozen.
All right. Well, he'll be back, I'm sure.
How's that?
Oh, here he is.
There he is. Hey, Mike.
I bet. Better. You got it? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
We can now. Just came back.
All right.
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and I'll get this going until Mike comes back. So we should definitely hear what he has to say because Mike is awesome and he kind of came up with this concept from scratch, created, directed, executive produced the movie, and he's done a lot of other sports movies. So he definitely has an interesting perspective. So hopefully we get him back on here. But I can go ahead and start while we're working through that. My name is Patrick Lacey. I graduated from Claremont in 2011. I played on the basketball team while I was there. And so thank you all so much for joining today. I hope you all enjoyed watching the movie and got to learn a little bit more about something that I think is really, really special and, it is really important to me. So I'm excited to be here today to talk about it and hear what you all thought about the movie and any questions that you have. I did have a few things to plug before I get going, so bear with me. I'll do that. There's 3 programs I wanted to shout out. The first one is the Prison to Employment Connection. It's a program that a lot of Claremont alumni have been involved in, and it helps currently incarcerated people develop job skills, resume writing, interview skills, and they have a job fair at the end where we bring in employers, and a lot of inmates then walk out of the gates with the job offer in hand. It's an awesome program, does a ton of good, and you can check out their website, prison2ec.org, if you wanted to learn more. The second thing is the COVID-19 outbreak in San Quentin. It's pretty bad, honestly. There's been like 1,700 people infected and 22 people have died, I believe. And no matter what you believe, the people in there weren't sentenced to die or to be infected. So there's no social distancing possible. And it's like a community issue. And the governor, in my opinion, has the power to release inmates to get the population down and should do so. So if you feel that way, you should contact Gavin Newsom. And then the third thing in general is just prison reform. It disproportionately impacts people of color and puts incredibly harsh sentences on youth offenders, 3-strike offenders, all kinds of different people. So I think prison reform is something everyone should think about when they're voting. So those are my 3 plugs. Thanks for bearing with me. And then I'll talk about the movie now and kind of how this all happened. So I've been going into San Quentin twice a month for 7 years at this point. So I was introduced to it by another Claremont alumni, Ben Dre, whose now father-in-law started the basketball program 25 years ago. And he knew I played basketball in college, and he asked if I wanted to go into prison and play. And I kind of said, okay, yeah, sure, I'll check it out. And I've been hooked ever since, honestly. It was 7 years ago, and I try never to miss a weekend when I can. I love going in there, and it's been an awesome experience. And over time, we've truly like grown the Claremont footprint in San Quentin. I think we have about 20 former Stags basketball players who have gone in there to play. And then we've expanded it. A lot of men and women soccer alumni go in as well to be a part of their soccer outreach program. And so the inmates of San Quentin like truly do know about Claremont and love Claremont, and they know that they should hate Pomona, and it's like, it's well known in there. So that is incredible. And for me, the biggest takeaway I would say is that it's easy to write off incarcerated people and make them equal to their crimes without looking at their humanity. And that's like what I really liked so much about the movie, was it was able to get their story out there to people over the world and show that they're people just like you and me, and they have the same hopes and dreams and humanity, that everyone else has. And so I think that was the most powerful thing. And that was something I learned from going in there, right? I didn't have that perspective when I first started going in. It's easy to think about him as someone else, some different type of people who commit crimes. But they're people. They're just people, just like us. And many of the people in there, right, they have had all the odds stacked against them their whole life. Poverty, racism, education, harsh sentences, whatever it is. And what's always so I take away every time I leave, it's really inspiring to me, is in the face of like pretty depressing, bad circumstances, no matter how you try and cut it, it's not a good time to be an incarcerated person. They are always trying to better themselves and be better and give back to their communities and learn more and grow and do the right thing. And I always walk out of there like just feeling really, really inspired by that. And it's like, if they can, in the face of being locked up, continue to strive to improve themselves, like I can definitely keep going when I have a bad day at work, or, something doesn't go my way, or, I have some other much more trivial, hardship in my life. And I draw on that a lot. I really do walk out with that perspective every time, and I think it's incredible. So in closing, basically, like I love the guys in there. I see them, more often than I see a lot of my friends and family. If we're going in there twice a month, I see them all the time. And so for me, it's a privilege to go in there and hoop with them. I'm always excited to go in. We haven't been able to go in since COVID, but I can't wait to get back in there once we can. And I hope that, watching the movie, I hope you enjoyed the movie, and I hope that it helps, broaden your perspective and show a different side of the prison system and the people impacted by it, because it really did for me. So that's all I had. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for calling in. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm pretty hyped about San Quentin prison basketball in general. So it's something that's really special to me. So thanks for listening to me. Happy to answer any and all questions, and I'll pass it over to my main man, Tejas.
Thanks, Pat. That was a very, very good introduction. I'm not sure I can follow that one up, but I think, I'll echo pretty much everything he said. For me, Pat, when I moved to San Francisco, I guess a little over 7 years ago, shortly after, Pat, texted me and said, "Hey, do you want to come play basketball at San Quentin?" And I think I sent something back saying the prison ? And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, if Pat's saying to do it, let's go do it." And so I didn't really know what I was getting into, right? I was just like, okay, Pat goes and it sounds like a fun thing to do on a Saturday. And then as we got close to the actual, for my first time going in, I got scared. Like, to be candid, I got scared. I didn't know what to expect. You hear stories about prisons. You hear stories about why people are in prison, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing, right? And then the way San Quentin is, it's on a beautiful piece of real estate, but you walk into the prison, and to get to the yard where you play, you kind of come around this bend, and it basically opens up into the yard, and you see all the people there. And it was this mixed feeling of excitement, nervousness, and scared and uncertainty all together. And I felt that way up until we started playing. And then once, like, the first shot went up and you boxed out or you hit someone, then you just were like, this is just basketball, and you're playing basketball with other people. And it, to me, that kind of shows the power of sport, and it kind of, it puts everything else to the side, and then you build these, incredible relationships, as Pat has been, Pat alluded to, right? These are people that you see every other week for years. And I truly say, I can say I feel like I've built some very, very strong relationships with people, with some of these people. And you start to learn their story, and you start to see there's a lot more similarity than difference. And it changed my complete mindset. I'll be the first one to admit, I think I was a lot more closed-minded about prison and what goes on in prison and things like that. And it's completely changed my perspective on this whole thing. And so to see the movie get made on this, and to have that story be told to a much broader audience, I think is so powerful, because I think the prison system is very misunderstood, and the people that are in prison are very misunderstood. And so to get, this story out there, I think is just so impactful and so powerful. And, for me, one of the big things that comes out of it for me is, how can we help them both in prison and then when they come back out, and so for me, it's, how do we get jobs? And so Pat and Pat's dad and a bunch of other people have done a great job with this prison to employment connection. And I'm trying to work really closely with Apple and some of the leadership team there to see if we can, really get jobs and give real jobs to folks. And then while they are in prison, how do we support them and let them know that we're thinking about them and they're not alone, and give them support. And I think to Pat's point, right, it makes some of the things that you are dealing with you know, in your day-to-day life seem very trivial, when they are always so upbeat and positive. And, you know, at the end of every game, they're chatting with you, or laughing, or joking, and they have such a good, you know, outlook and perspective on life, even with you know, very challenging circumstances. So, you know, I hope you all enjoyed the movie, and you know, maybe we should hear from the writer and producer himself.
He's back.
I'm back.
Talk
Yeah,
to us, Mike.
Yeah, I moved. Hopefully you can hear me now.
You're good.
But yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining, and for Pat and Tejas and Evan and everyone at the college to show interest in me and in the film. I really echo both of what those guys said as far as the experience of going in there. And it makes me feel good in the sense that, obviously, I hope more people get the opportunity to go into San Quentin and visit and see what Pat and Tejas and myself have seen in person. But I'm thrilled in that, having the film, knowing that the vast majority of people will never get to go to San Quentin, to have the film, even to a small percentage or a small sense, to give people that impression or that feeling that Pat described and Tejas described, as far as thinking about incarcerated people and prisoners, or however you want to term them, thinking about them beyond their crime, or just someone that deserves to be locked away and forgotten about, that these are human beings that just like you and I, that have hopes and dreams, have problems, often problems way beyond anything we've ever faced. And yet, at least the guys that we focused on the basketball team, these are people that are committed to changing, that have admitted to their crimes, have done a lot of work on themselves as far as what caused them to go down the wrong road, a lot of self-analysis, therapy, self-help groups. Like, these guys they really want to change. They know they may have a chance to get out, and they want to get out and be able to, like, be good members of society, good fathers, husbands, you know, employees. And so if people just from watching the film can get a little bit of that theme and that sense, and to maybe think twice when they hear about someone who's in prison, or someone that's an ex-con that got out, and be willing to, like, hear their story and see them as a human being, that's like huge for me. Like, that's way beyond anything I can you know, describe. And I've done a lot of documentary films, and this was very unique, and it still lingers with me now, a couple of years later. And I still have, like Pat and Tejas, I have relationships with these guys now, and continue to go back to San Quentin. Several of the guys have gotten released since the film aired. There's some more that are coming up soon, like Anthony, and I hope Black, and even Raphael. So, you know, we're trying to help those guys in any way we can with some of their parole preparations. And the guys that are out, like Harry and Cuddy, and Showtime, the announcer, I heard he just recently got paroled. So so far so good with those guys. I know it's not easy, especially now with the pandemic, but they're staying out of trouble. They're finding jobs. They're reconnecting with their families. So it's great. But beyond that, I'll just kind of open it up to you guys, and any questions, happy to answer.
Thanks so much. So if you'd like to ask a question, you can either raise your hand and we'll call on you, or you can put something into the chat. While you do that, I did have a couple of questions come in via email. The first question is about whether something like this program works for women prisoners as well. Someone's looked into your past work as well, Michael, and is curious if you're going to do any film on women in sports, so kind of the women's side. You know, I do not know of if programs like this are happening at women's prisons. I do know that San Quentin is a unique place. It's one of probably the most progressive prisons in the country as far as the number of programs that go on there. I mean, there's all the sports programs, including basketball, but the educational programs, the employment job training programs. I mean, there's computer coding, there's AA, there's
I mean, you can get college degrees in there. Like it's pretty amazing the amount of programs that are offered, and they're all, I think the vast majority, if not all, are volunteer programs. They're not being paid for by tax dollars. They're just people, teachers, lawyers, willing to spend their time. People like Pat and Tejas to go in and play pickup ball with these guys. So unfortunately, San Quentin is unique. I think there's the guys on the team actually talk about in California, inmates often try to get to San Quentin. Like they want to get transferred to San Quentin because they know that San Quentin offers these programs and can help these guys concretely change their lives, give them some training, give them almost like a little bit of a resume to show concretely that they are working towards becoming a better person, and that can ultimately help their parole. So you hear San Quentin, this like infamous scary place, but prisoners want to get there because of the programs. So I hope that what we're talking about now, the film, maybe other prison officials, other wardens can see that film and maybe can help organize similar volunteer programs. I mean, money is tight, you know, obviously, but like I said, these are volunteer programs. So even 1 or 2 programs starting up at other prisons in California or around the country. I really think, I mean, I don't know the exact data on the recidivism, you know, how much guys that are released come back to prison, but from what I can tell anecdotally, people that go through these programs and commit to them, they're coming back to prison at a extremely much lower rate than people that do not take these, you know, participate or even have access to these programs. So as far as the women, I'm sure there are some prisons that have you know, self-help programs. I don't know about sports, maybe in the women's, but I would say that I'm sure there's a lot of room for more of that.
Yeah, in terms of both of those things you mentioned, that's exactly right. And we have started, you know, San Quentin's an easy place to start because the leadership of the prison is receptive to it. It's close to the Bay Area, so people can, you know, 20-minute drive over the bridge and you're there. A lot of the other institutions are pretty remote, but we do have plans for expanding the sports programs to other prisons in California, including women's prisons, and also trying to expand some of the programs to other prisons as well. That recidivism rate that you talked about, it is exactly right. The prison to employment program that I touched on, you know, we are only at San Quentin right now, but the plan is to make this a model that you can duplicate at other institutions. And, you know, we've only been at it for a short amount of time, but the recidivism rate so far through that program is something like 1% compared to 50 times that normally. So there is a ton of value in these, and we are looking at how do we scale and expand the sports programs and other volunteer programs to other institutions around California. And it's about, you know, fundraising, volunteers, building the people, building the infrastructure, getting approval. Things move pretty slow in the prison system. So it is a slog to try and get some of this stuff pushed through, but it's definitely on the radar because so many people love it in San Quentin, and there've been so much success from doing it.
We have a question from Joshua. Josh, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure do. Yeah, thank you, Evan. So first off, great to hear from my guys, Pat and Tejas, and Mike will love the film, and glad we got you on here. Question for all of you, and then I have a hoops related question that might be more for Pat and Tejas. So, you know, you mentioned talking about how this is beneficial for folks who, you know, are going to get out of prison, and also setting up some programming to kind of help them get back into jobs and just kind of get reacclimated with society. Question is, how do we get past that mindset of folks who were formerly in prison as a society to kind of move past that, to make it where it's more accepted for us to bring them on and even kind of spearhead some of these changes that we want to be able to help them get past this and become productive members of society again? So that's a question for all of you. And then for Pat and Tejas, how would you describe the style of play at San Quentin? Thanks again.
You wanna start, Mike?
Yeah, I'll start, and then I'll pass it to you guys. Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to kind of overcome the stigma is to physically meet these people, spend time with, if these are guys that have recently got out of prison, like sit down with them if at all possible, and just talk to them as people and get a sense of them. I mean, literally after the first day of filming at San Quentin, like I came away with like, oh my God, like I see scarier people on the streets of San Francisco than I did in the prison yard. Like these guys are upbeat, they're hopeful, they have a sense of humor, they're I mean, they're just good. In their heart, they're good people. They obviously have issues and struggles and things they're still trying to overcome, but not so far different than people like you and me that are out there. So I think it's just finding a way to even spend a half an hour with them, introduce them to other people in your organization or your job, and that'll be the most effective and quickest way to be like, wow, like I'd like to help this person. I believe in this person. And look, there's always risk. You never know, what could happen, but I think these are guys that really don't want to go back to prison. They still have a lot of life ahead of them, and they just want a chance. I mean, some of these guys have been in prison since they were 16, I don't know. So I would say that just, if you can, spend time with them, and that will help you and your colleagues like realize, and maybe you give one person a chance, a job or an internship or something, and then you see like, hey, look how that worked out, and then you can earn trust, and it can slowly continue to grow.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. The other thing is that there's laws that have been passed, like the ban the box law and other things like that, where you aren't required to disclose it up front when you're applying for jobs. And sure, it comes up later in the background check process, but maybe you've made enough of an impression to get past that rather than getting rejected immediately off the bat, where you never get a chance to explain yourself, because that's a lot of what the prison to employment program focuses on. How to talk about your criminal history, and how to talk about how you acknowledge what happened in the past, and why things are going to be different going forward. And so, exactly as Mike said, if you give people that chance, a lot of people coming out of there are incredibly compelling. Anything else you want to talk on that front, Tej, before we go to style of play?
Yeah, I think I echo what both of you said. Obviously, there is a much broader cloud over all of this with systemic racism, and I think that we almost need to start there at the highest level, and obviously there's been a lot that's been going on in the nation over the last couple months, but then under that shroud as well. I agree with Pat and Mike in terms of spending time and building relationships will open your eyes. I've been a believer in that, and in so many different things that I do, and it's changed my, I like I mentioned in the opening, right? It changed my perspective after I got to spend time with folks, and so that's the biggest thing for me. And then no different, I think, for me, and I guess it is very different, but taking a chance, right? I think I think taking a chance and going out on a limb and hiring someone, or going to bat for someone, or going out of your way to make sure that that you're caring for them, whatever it might be. I think that's another powerful way to support them. Yeah. In terms of the hoops, I guess, I think anyone who's played for Scally will understand, in terms of it's basically like one of his practices. It's extremely physical, very low scoring. You got to deal with the wind, and referees are not necessarily fair. but it's the best basketball I've played since playing at Claremont. It's not even close. I don't know, Pat, what do you have to add? I mean,
I would say it is incredibly competitive. It's by far the best basketball I've played. It's the cleanest, most competitive game that I play is in prison. Like in the city leagues in San Francisco, like somebody's going to cut your legs out. Somebody's going to throw a cheap shot. Somebody's going to try and start a fight, you know, whatever. But in prison, they want to win so badly. Like they play so hard because it's very important to them. They care very, very much. So it's really physical, really intense, really good basketball. But they also like are so appreciative that we come into play. Like there are no cheap shots. Like nobody's throwing bows. Like they will hit every box out and dive on the asphalt for the ball. You know, Tejas does it too. Tejas takes charges in there sometimes, but the guys on their team are taking charges, diving on the asphalt. Like they want to win. And it's the cleanest, most competitive game I've played since playing in college. I love, the caliber of basketball in there as well. It's honestly, it's really, really good.
So we have a question about how the documentary kind of came to be. What was the process like to create it? Question, Michael, for you directly, whether you ever played in San Quentin and if that's how the film came about, but kind of go through the creative process for us.
Sure. Yeah, it was, you know, I moved to the Bay. I'm from the East Coast. I moved to the Bay Area in 2013. And I had, you know, I would drive over the Richmond Bridge occasionally and I would see San Quentin on my left. And, you know, I had all those same thoughts. I'm sure that you have, you know, San Quentin, Charles Manson and death row. And, but I was always intrigued by prisons. I loved prison documentaries and stories and films, and always wondered what it was like in there. I even parked a couple of times and tried to look and see. And then not shortly after, I read an article, I think it was in USA Today, about how the Golden State Warriors kind of through Ben Dre and the team that Pat and Tejas are involved with, the Golden State Warriors got connected to the program and started kind of unofficially or casually bringing in members of the organization to play at San Quentin. Bob Myers, the GM, Steve Kerr, these guys and front office people started to go in and just like Pat and the green team go in and play a pickup game once a year. And then they started to bring in Warriors players. The players couldn't play in the pickup game because of injuries, but they would hang out and watch the game and kind of fraternize with the guys. And I'm always like, wow, this is like this, you know, I was a documentary filmmaker. I'm like, wow, so you have one of the most infamous prisons in the country. You have basketball as a rehabilitation, and you have the world champion Golden State Warriors going in to be part of it. I just felt like it was like super fertile ground for a documentary. It had all the elements that you would look for. And, you know, basketball was just the setting. I knew it was about way more than that. At the time, I didn't know how much more it would be beyond the court, but obviously it became a lot more once we got in there. And then San Quentin, they're used to having crews and camera people and news groups in the prisons, probably more than other prisons. So once we met Sam Robinson, who's the media contact there, and we talked to him about what we were hoping to do, I think he felt we were genuine about our goals and committed and willing to work with him as far as the regulations and everything. He allowed us to film for 2 days. So we filmed the guys playing, the inmates playing amongst themselves, a couple games, and then I did probably about 8 interviews. And I put together, they call it a sizzle reel. It's almost like a trailer. It's about a 6-minute kind of sample of what the film could be about and the characters. And we put together a couple page written treatment. And then we use that to kind of shop that around to different sports networks and streaming places. And to be honest, there was a lot of interest, but it never really, it was about 1.5 years we tried to pitch this thing, which I thought would be a no-brainer, and we couldn't really get it get it greenlit, and we were getting discouraged, and I was almost about to give up. And then I had heard about this Magnify series at Fox, which really was about films that focus about the power of sport and how sports can impact communities and lives. And we shared that with them. They loved the treatment and the sizzle reel. And then at that point, Kevin Garnett was with the Warriors, and he had gone in to San Quentin, and he had started his own media company. And we were able to get that stuff to him and his business partner, and they were instantly on board. And then, you know, when you have KD on board, things tend to happen even quicker. And we got the deal done with Fox. And then within a month, we were in San Quentin filming, and we ended up filming pretty much from April through November of 2018.
Thanks. And talk to us a little bit about the logistics of both A, just playing basketball in San Quentin as an outsider, but also B, what it's like to film there. You mentioned that you had 2 days of limits, but was it 8 hours, 12 hours? Was there extra security? Kind of what was it like?
Yeah, I mean, those 2 days were really just to shoot that sizzle reel, that sample. Once the full film got greenlit, I think we ended up shooting about 25 days total in San Quentin. And our days were anywhere probably from 4 to 8 hours. You know, you couldn't go in every day. So when we were in there, we would try to extend the day as much as we could, and we would film as many different things as we could. Security wise, I mean, these Pat and Tej can speak to it. There's not a lot of, once you get in there, there's not a whole lot of extra security. There's no armed guards following us around. I mean, we did have Sam Robinson, the media official, but he was unarmed. He wasn't right next to us the whole time. Kind of, we came in with our gear. Our crew was anywhere from 4 to 8 people, depending on what we were shooting. We'd park it by the court, and the inmates were free to come up to us and talk to us and look at our equipment. We had several inmates that were part of the team or part of the media center at San Quentin. They became kind of unofficial production assistants and grips and helped us move the equipment. And when we needed someone to get interviewed and we couldn't find them, they'd go search the prison. So it was really cool to have these guys be part of the production and learn and kind of fellowship with those guys. But yeah, security wise, you're vulnerable, and you know, to put it that way. And we only knew a handful of the guys who are on the team. You're in the entire yard with thousands of inmates that you don't know. But like Tejas said, after a little bit, you kind of put your guard down and just trust, and maybe call it naive, but I think, look, it's a level 2 prison. These are inmates that are hoping to be released. These are guys that want to get out. So they're not incentivized to hurt you or to steal your equipment and things like that. Problems do happen. We witnessed a fight there. I'm sure there's violent outbreaks, but it seems like there's an unwritten rule that you don't mess with the volunteers or the outside people. There's women volunteers. There's young women walking through the yard, so they've just figured it out. And yeah, like I said, we would shoot a lot of things. The tough thing is that we had to schedule our days. We couldn't go in every day, and all their days are kind of the same. So as a filmmaker, you want to get different scenes. You want to get different things happening. So we had to really research, talk to the guys, and be creative about what we were shooting and when. What was great was that a lot of the guys were so, as you saw in the film, very open about their pasts and how they got to prison. And so that gave us, that backstory allowed me to dig much deeper into these guys and show kind of their arcs a little more than just what's happening on the court.
Pat or Tejas, any comments to add?
I remember thinking that the first time I went into, I was like, are we going to have like a guard? Are we going to be behind a fence? Are we protected? And you just kind of walk in the gates and you walk into the yard and you're just in the middle of the yard. And there, you know, I've never had any issues. I've never had any problems in there. And yeah, there's no separation. There's no guard. There's no weapons. You're just out there with all the folks on the yard. And so, yeah, that was, I didn't know what to expect my first time. So I wasn't sure. And that took me by surprise a little bit, but.
Well, one thing I'll say before Tejas is that there are often alarms when you're in there. So you could be playing a game or something, and the alarm sounds, and when that happens, all of the inmates have to lay down on the ground. And if you're not an inmate, if you're a civilian or a volunteer, you're told to stay standing up. And that could happen. Some days it happened like 6, 7, 8 times. Sometimes it would go on for half an hour where the guys are down. There's a problem on the yard, and so that did happen quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think they covered it all. I mean, Pat gave me some warning before I went in for the first time, so I was aware of it. But yeah, I think to what Mike was saying, you know, they know that this is a very unique experience for them, and so no one wants to have anything happen to take away, you know, the opportunity for these outreach programs. And so there's very much an understanding of, you know, let's you know, everyone, and I think in general, you know, there's no issues, and you feel, I'll be very candid, like I feel very safe when I go in. I don't feel scared, or I don't feel worried. I feel very safe. And yeah.
We had a question about some of those prisoners who were featured, and curious if anyone has any updates on some of those players, and maybe they're out of prison now. Someone specifically asked about ATL, but any updates you could give to the group would be great.
I talked to him last. I talked to him a little while ago. Last I talked to him, ATL's out. He's reconnected with his daughter. He's living and working in Palo Alto, and he's training for basketball. Also, Cuddy's out, and a couple other people who were featured are coming up on parole hearings. Black and Raphael and Ants were all denied at their most recent ones, but I believe they all have dates coming up again. Yep. I don't know if anyone's connected with anyone more recently than that and has additional updates.
No, I think you got it. I mean, I think the only other thing, I guess, Cuddy has an album out now, right? Or it's coming out shortly.
Yeah, new single.
New single coming out shortly, and so you know, that's and then I guess one of the other guys in the film, you know, you may have seen him on the sidelines talking trash the whole time. Caesar, he's basically a part of the program. He actually got out about I guess about a month and a half ago, and so he's doing well in Long Beach. He was on an Ear Hustle podcast explaining, because he was actually towards the end of his, you know, basically right after he got told the news that he was going to be able to come out, they put him actually into the COVID ward, I guess. So he has some interesting stories about what actually was happening in the prison at that time, and it's actually very jarring to hear. But it's on the Ear Hustle podcast if of interest. But he's out and doing well, and he's actually created a law, like a legal support, pro bono legal support group that's helping helping provide legal services for people in prison.
One other thing to call out is Michael, the music for the film with Maserati E, and weren't there some nominations around that? And I know he did some of the songs in the movie, and he's kind of continuing his music career since he's been out.
Yeah, we actually, Cue Ball was nominated for 2 Emmy Awards, Sports Emmy Awards for Best Documentary and for the music. Those awards actually are next week, the actual awards. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. But so Eric Abercrombie, who is in this film, there's a scene where he's playing the guitar and singing an original song. He was released, and he's doing a lot of music. He's recording in the studio. He's also doing a lot of volunteer and public speaking, but he's really super talented guy, and you could probably Maserati E, or the real Maserati, I think he goes by. You could probably find his Instagram and kind of follow him. Same with Cuddy. Cuddy sings a rap song over the credits of the film, and he just put out a new single. He goes, I think Continental Cuddy is his name, or Philavault he has all these different
Continental Cuddy
handles on Instagram. But I'm sure if you connect with Pat or myself, we can share those. But look, these guys are hustlers, man. They're going after it. They're not, sitting back looking for someone to give them a handout. Obviously they'll appreciate any help they can get, but these guys are hustling and they're talented. Yep, Harry ATL, he's been back to Atlanta and reconnected with his kid and his family. He's still working out. I think he still hopes to maybe play either in the G League or perhaps overseas. I know the film has exposed him and his story to some people around the world, and he's gotten some contact about potentially playing. But it's not easy, and I encourage all these guys to have backup plans and day jobs if they can, to kind of pay the bills, and they're trying. But yeah, I hope Black, Anthony can get out soon. I also think Raphael's might be coming up for a resentencing possibly. So we'll see what happens, but I'm hopeful, and the less guys that can be in there at San Quentin right now, the better too, as far as the COVID situation. So.
Yeah. Tom Lacey, go ahead, and you're unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, Mike, first of all, thanks for what you've done. It's just awesome, simply awesome. I played in San Quentin in 1979, when I was at Berkeley, and the change from then till now, it's just night and day. So, but my question to you is, if you could comment, one of the more emotional things for me in the film was Raphael's crime, and when you interviewed the victim's mom. If you could just comment on that.
Yeah, that was we felt it wasn't the plan initially necessarily to interview the victims or victims' families, but as we started to shoot the film and put it together, we realized that, if we didn't, you can't just turn your eye to what some of the crimes were. Some of them are heinous, horrible crimes, and if we only showed the one perspective of the inmates, the documentary would be considered just propaganda and oh, that's just one side of the story. Oh, poor inmates, yeah. So I think, we had to give the film balance, and so we talked, we looked at the guys' stories, and Raphael's crime happened in San Francisco. We were able to track down the story was in the news. It was in the papers. A lot of people remember it. It happened outside of San Francisco Giants game. So we were able to track down his mom, who had started a nonprofit to help victims' families, and also to help troubled youth avoid, getting into more trouble. And so we met with her and we explained what we were doing. And I don't think she was fully comfortable at first, but she kind of thought about it. And I think she wanted her side of the story told, and she wanted to speak for her son. So we were able to interview her. It was emotional to interview her, and she's still, obviously as a mom dealing with the pain of losing her son. But we did feel it was important for the film. For Raphael, I think, he had obviously mixed feelings about that part of it, but I think he understood what I just explained and that it was important. And he obviously in the film admits to what he did and shows remorse. So I hope that it, in the end, it in a way helps Timothy's mom and their family come to terms and cope, and hopefully it helps Raphael in his process, and maybe also working through what he did and the toll he took and what he can do with his life. I don't know. As when you make a documentary, you you can't please everybody. You struggle with what to include, what not to include. There was so much stuff on the cutting room floor, but I'm very happy. I'm very glad she was willing to talk to us. I stand by it, and I'm glad that we included it in the film. I think it's important. I don't think the film would resonate as much as it did, and I don't think it would be taking us seriously if we didn't include that, because as much as we want to say, oh, these guys are great guys and stuff, like, you can't completely ignore, you know, what's happened with some of these guys. So it's not easy, but that's kind of the process.
That was one of the things I appreciated the most about the film was, you know, the balanced perspective from everyone's point of view. And you could see truly how incarcerated people, their families, victims of crimes, everyone in the community is impacted, and it told, in my mind, like the holistic story. So I did really appreciate that about the film.
Sam Kuntz has his hand raised. Sam, if you'd like to unmute, ask away.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm wondering for everybody, this might be more of a legal question. To start off with, first of all, the film is phenomenal, and thank you for making it, and thank you for talking about it today. And maybe it's more on the legal side of things, but speaking of keeping up with those who have now been released, what goes into the parole process, and if involvement in the program, such as basketball, and I was involved with the soccer program for a while, and if that factors into it at all, and then what your involvement, if you've had any involvement in it, has been as well, because I know that in certain cases, the volunteers have been asked to write letters for parole boards and whatnot. And so if you've had any experience in that, and relatedly, I think the best part of the film was adding the human aspect, like Pat said, to everything. And if you just have any fun stories or from any memorable interactions you've had with the residents at San Quentin. Thank you.
Sure. I'll be real quick. Yes, I do think being involved, the inmates being involved in these programs, be it sports, self-help groups, AA, educational, job training, like, it goes on their record. They can earn certificates and put a resume together and have skills. So I think it just shows a concrete track record of effort that they've made that can be documented, so that I believe all that stuff helps in their parole. Obviously, it's not the ultimate. I think the judges are still, the parole hearing board is still going to consider whether these guys are they're doing it just to get out, or if they really mean it. Are they sincere? Are they remorseful? Are they still a threat? So those are still the most important, but these programs do very much help these guys in their parole hearing, and help, more importantly, just help them themselves and their mindset and all that. And I have been asked to write some letters. I have written some character letters for a few of the guys that have come up for parole. I'm sure I'll do some more. But it's up to you. You know, you have to be comfortable with that part of it, and be honest with the guys. They want to get out, and they're going to reach out. I'm sure Pat and Tej can confer. Yeah. Like, they're asking for whatever help they can, as I would if I were them. And we do what we can, what we have time for, what we feel comfortable with. But ultimately, if we can help another human being change their life for the better, I mean, what more rewarding thing can there be? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Mike's point, right? I've written letters. Pat and I actually called in and gave a verbal, I guess, character. We were verbal character witnesses for someone. And to what Mike's saying, right? You do what you can, and you do what you're comfortable with, and you know, that's kind of been my approach to it. And then in terms of, I guess, a funny interaction, I guess I'll you know, I guess one thing that is very interesting. I've tried moonshine in the prison. One of the guys brought out pineapple moonshine, and I tried it at 9:30 in the morning. It tastes a lot better than I would have thought. So,
guys, they're recording this call, man.
I know. Nothing else needs to be said, but maybe we can cut that 10 seconds out. I don't know.
I too have sampled Pruno at 9:30 in the morning, and it was better than I thought it would be. But yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to add on top of that. I've written letters and I've tried Pruno as well.
Well, we have 2 minutes left. I think if each of you would maybe take a quick moment and add anything that maybe we haven't talked about or something that was really moving for you in the film, I think that'd be a nice way to end.
I can start. I don't have that much more to say than I already have. Just thank you all so much for calling in today. I appreciate everyone watching the film, learning more about what goes on at San Quentin, and having an open mind. It's really changed my perspective on the prison system, and I hope that everyone got to take away a new perspective than what they had going in. So thanks so much. It's something I really care about, and it means a lot to me. And so I just really appreciate the time.
I echo what Pat says. Thank you all for watching it. Thank you all for coming here to listen. And I can say it's fundamentally changed my life to be a part of this program for the positive. And it's opened my eyes to a lot of things, and it's just been very powerful for me.
Yep, I'll echo that. I mean, I think this film, making this film, meeting these people, the inmates, Sam Robinson, Pat, Tej, all the different teams that come in. Like I said before, meeting them, seeing them face to face, shaking their hand, just changed my mindset about people, and thinking twice about judging or a book by its cover or anything like that. And I'm very thankful for that. Personally, I'm thrilled that the film turned out well, that people are enjoying it, and that it's moving for them. I just ask everyone to just, if you liked it, spread the word. It's up on Netflix. It'll be up there at least for another year, and on Fox on demand. And hopefully got some more great projects coming up in the future. And I'm going to see if Tej knows anyone at Apple Plus that can hook me up with a good budget for some documentaries. And
let's talk.
Yeah. And so anyway, thanks you all for joining, and much appreciated.
Well, thank you all, Patrick and Tejas. Thank you for representing CMC, CMS, and Stags basketball so well around the world. Michael, best of luck with award season coming up. This is definitely a fantastic film, and we hope you are recognized beyond some traditional methods. So we look forward to what comes next. Everyone here, thank you so much for spending the hour with us. We look forward to seeing you at future programs. And as always, stay connected. Feel free to reach out, and please continue to review the virtual library. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye. I'm going to unmute, and if you want to say hello, I'm sorry I didn't get asked the last question about the religious aspect, but if you want to go ahead and ask away, I'm sure there might still be a response. So everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Great job to you all.
Good job.
Way to go.
Oh, Lacey.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Good luck. Go Stags.